Hello, everyone. Oh, hello. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask these guys a bunch of questions, and they're going to try and be honest with me. That's where we're going to try and go this. So my name is Ben Akers. I'm ex-advertising creative director, Droga 5, BBH. And I got into the mental health world when my childhood best friend took his own life 7 years ago. And I needed to do something with that grief. So I ended up making a film called Steve. And from that film, I'm now the CEO of a charity I didn't mean to start. So I run a charity called Talk Club. It's a talking group for men, and we're all based around how are you out of 10? So it's an honest question. We call it a truth question. And I'm going to ask these guys, when they introduce themselves, to sort of give us their number out of 10 as well. 1 being the worst day ever, 10 being the best day ever. And what we find is that if you can actually just center yourself and actually ask yourself that question, that can change the way that you interact with your colleagues, the way you interact with your family. And for me, that's actually been on my mental health journey for the last 4 years since we've created Talk Club, is that I'm a lot more honest with myself. So I will hand you over, I'll go along the line, so I'll hand you over to Dave next, but we'll begin with David. How are you out of 10?
Hello, Ben. Hi, everyone. I think I'd be about a 6.5 today, if we're being honest. I'm a little bit tired and a bit of stuff going on, so yeah, I'd be about a 6.5. Yeah, I'm David, as Ben said. I'm obviously Australian, as you can probably tell by the accent. I studied design. I then moved to London as a junior, because that's the sort of place that you would study at the time and learn your craft. I worked at various places, including VCCP and BBH, where I've met Ben. And I then moved back to Australia to work at Publicis, and then moved to New York to work at Droga 5, where I was a creative director. I then thought, after doing some of the best work of my career and having the time of my life, and with a wife that was 5 months pregnant, I thought it'd be a really good idea to throw all that in and start a beer company with a former Prime Minister of Australia. So, not knowing anything about beer or brewing, so that's what I did. And thankfully, it's actually worked out over the last 6 years, and now I've moved back to the northern hemisphere. And after being sort of surrounded by fun but grumpy pub owners for the last few years, it's nice to be surrounded by creative people again. So glad to be here.
Thanks, mate. Jim?
Thanks, Ben. For accessibility, I was just going to describe what I'm wearing. And so I'm Jim de Zoete. I am white, male. I'm wearing blue jeans, my new favorite Moroccan shirt. I'm executive creative director at Across the Pond. We're a small but global independent agency working a lot with tech brands, ad campaigns, branded content. I started my career at Saatchi's and then spent a long time at the BBC in-house there. I also make documentaries, more often than not about sport. And yeah, I love what I do. I think advertising is a really interesting blend of creativity applied to business. And yeah, I've been on a bit of a mental health journey myself, which I'm sure we'll touch on at some point here. But my score. I would say I'm an 8. We actually often do this in the agency, and we're not allowed to give ourselves 7s because it's a little bit of a cop-out. So I'm going to go for 8. Excited, bit nervous.
Thanks, Jim. Caroline?
Thank you. I'm Caroline Pay. I'm going to describe myself as well. I've never heard of that before, and I read it in the briefing notes. I think it's brilliant. So I'm a 48-year-old woman dressed in a baby grow. I've got blonde hair, but it needs a trim, and I'm getting it trimmed next Friday, so that's good. I'm currently fresh into Dentsu Creative as the new Chief Creative Officer. Woo, yeah. There's a number of them in the audience. I am an 8 as well. I just can't tell you how much I'm loving my new job, and I'm just flying high because of that. Brilliant people, brilliant opportunities. Before this, I spent 25 years bouncing between Mother, BBH, wide in Karmarama grey. And then I changed everything and packed all my bags and my 8-year-old son and moved to California to run Headspace, the meditation app, which I believe is one of the reasons I'm on the panel today, to give a bit of insight into that. But yeah, generally 8 out of 10. And I have to say, I've got so many friends in the audience, I feel like a bit of a phony, old friends and new friends, but it's lovely to see everyone. Nicola?
She's doing your job for you, Ben. Yeah. I'm Nicola. I have curly hair, which comes from my Irish heritage. I'm a white female wearing my favourite trousers, which are green, and a sandy colour top and some trainers. I currently work at Anomaly as a European head of talent there, so looking after London, Berlin. We've also got people in France, Amsterdam, and Portugal. I know Ben from BBH and Caroline from BBH, and then I went to be Chief People Officer at Havas, where I was across 11 different agencies. So I've got lots of experience of the agency world, and that's with my people and talent hat on. And then with my other hats, I'm also a trained and practicing psychotherapist and a coach. And my score, I'm a solid 8, actually. Pretty happy to be here, loving the energy of this place, and nice to be amongst all of you, and I'm excited about this topic.
Fantastic. Okay, so I give you my score. So before I walked in, I was probably a 6.5, and I'm probably an 8 at the moment now. Because it's sort of like, because I was quite worried about seeing you guys, because I sort of like, we haven't met before. I haven't seen you guys for a long, long time. We didn't know if anyone would turn up, and so it's lovely to sort of start this conversation. Yes, you were right about the briefing notes. So glasses, beard, 47-year-old bloke. We're trying to pretend that he's still 14 with a pair of Air Jordans on. I'm just going to go straight into it. I mean, like, what do you think about the mental health of the creative industry? Who wants to start this? Nick?
Okay, I'll take the baton. What do I think about the mental health of the creative industry? I don't know if it's exceptional compared to other industries. I think it's a tough place to work. We demand a lot of our people. I think time is always of the essence. Interestingly, the agency that I work for is the only agency I've ever worked for who doesn't do timesheets, which was, what? No timesheets? I think that we have to, as employers, make sure that we're providing an inclusive, mentally healthy space for our people. And I think that our people need to also ensure that they are helping themselves in that place. And I know that we're going to come on to other questions around that. So I think it's an interesting place. I think it's a tough place to work. I think it can be really rewarding. And people often talk about the magic that happens if you're in a pitch and it's really stressful. And I think that may be some truth to that. And I also think you can't run constant marathons. You have to be able to have some downtime. You have to know when the high is going to go to a low from a workload perspective.
So Caroline, you've worked at some pretty top places in your career, and I remember being a mother with you when it was the pressure that sort of like, it was almost like we burned through creatives. There was a lot of teams there. I mean, how have you found the creative industry, and do you think that we need pressure? We need that sort of like that adrenaline to create great work?
I mean, I could talk about it for hours. I think it's, you know, as I said, I'm nearly 50, and I think it was a rite of passage in the 90s when you were in your 20s, and I was working with Kim Gehrig, and we would never stop, ever. But at that time, we didn't have kids, we didn't have, like, marriages. We were just really focused on our work and becoming the best at what we did. And I look back now on that girl, and I think that she needed to be helped and supported and told, maybe you don't have to work 24 hours a day, but it was kind of the done thing. The other extreme was at Headspace, where it was so gentle and so risk averse and so quiet, and it was maybe too much the other way. There wasn't the momentum, and I certainly missed that. But I'm a firm believer in working smart. So giving it everything you got in hours that are healthy for you, and then stepping away. So I don't think, that gentle all the time is ever, I've been there, and it's not fulfilling, but at the same time, I think you have to push yourself, have fun, do your best, and know when to stop. And that's what I didn't have when I was in my 20s and 30s, till I had a kid, and then you have to stop, because someone needs feeding.
So Jim, you when we talked, you wrote a piece about pitching, and about the pressure that we get from pitching, but also, and when, as we're saying about the great stuff that appears, but your agency doesn't pitch.
Yeah, we don't pitch, which is, we also don't do timesheets, actually. We don't pitch. We didn't do that we didn't do it intentionally for mental health reasons. We did it for, it's a nuts way of working reasons. I think it's really interesting for mental health, the impact that it has on you. I mean, there's obvious, as you said, like there's obvious kind of problems with it. Like you're running at 100 miles an hour, weekends disappear, holidays disappear, everything disappears. And you're working very long hours under a great amount of stress. But I think there's something else going on in pitching as well, which is first of all, you're giving your work away for free more often than not. So creatives are being asked to generate idea after idea that they know ultimately probably will never see the light of day, and actually is not necessarily valued by the person on the other side of the desk. Most times, well, whatever it is, 50%, 1 out of 3 you might win, but the rest of the time it isn't. And I think, this is my hunch, I don't know if it's true or not, but I think it does something to your self-esteem, because you're basically having to prove yourself every time and go, look at me, this is great, don't you think it's great? And then there are people on the other side of the table who are just going, no, that's not great, that's not great, that's not great. And you've got to then pick yourself up and do it again. And it's both quite exciting and quite validating when it works, but it's also something eats away, I think, at your self-esteem. I think. It's a hunch, I don't know.
Can I beg to differ?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. One of the things that I really missed when I wasn't in the industry was pitching, because I think it's license to dream, which we kind of have lost a little bit in the industry. So as long as you pitch smart, like I was saying earlier, work smart, then I think you can reach those kind of energy and the momentum and the optimism and ambition of a pitch that you maybe don't get as much these days in the day-to-day work, but then whilst being respectful of, we're not going to work all night, we're not going to work all weekend, we might just come in one day at the weekend if we have to, but I think that there must be a way to win and be energized and, really, really thrive whilst resting, finding peace, finding space, and having a whole life outside work. But I'm really optimistic.
I mean, that's the thing. To me, it's about creating a sustainable environment, right? And a culture that's sustainable. And Dave, you've worked in London, New York, and Sydney. I mean, 3 very high-pressure environments, and Droga 5 New York probably being the heaviest of that. And where we got to in one conversation that we had was this review at 10 o'clock on a Sunday evening with Mr. Droga. Do you want to tell us more about that environment at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably might answer that with a little story going back to London. I was working with a creative, and like most creatives, this guy worked harder than anyone actually, and he was in the office till about 10 o'clock every single night, and not even on a pitch, just that's what he did, if not later. And he had this little trick that if anyone left before 7:30 or 8 p.m, he would yell out in his very thick northern accent, "Half day," to the laughter of everyone that was still in the agency at the time. And of course, I thought that was hilarious, so I took that back to Australia with me and tried it on unsuspecting account people, much to their sort of delight and my delight and their frustration. And the interesting thing was, when I went to New York, I never had to use it because no one ever left the office in New York at the time before 8 p.m. And I think, I think what that highlights, apart from the fact I can't do a northern accent, is that I think that for me, it was a bit, I'll look back at that now and I think it's actually quite sad that we saw working late as a badge of honour and also putting people down for actually trying to have a life. And I think on the flip side, I'd also like to make the point that in my experience, the working culture of a city or a country heavily influenced the working culture of an agency. So New York obviously is fast-paced and crazy, as everyone knows. Add advertising to that, and it's a whole nother level. Whereas my experience in London, and I'm going back a long while, so forgive me, but I felt like everyone does work hard, but at the time there was a little bit more work-life balance. And Australia, I think everyone thinks that we're going to be on the beach drinking cold beer the entire time, but it's actually not the case. It was, the hours were just as crazy as anywhere else in advertising. And in all those markets, there was, at the time, and I'm going back probably 6-7 years, there was absolutely no regard for mental health. Like, in any of the agencies I worked at, if you of course there was a level of care, but it wasn't spoken about. It was a bit of a, you just wouldn't talk about mental health if you had a problem, which obviously is a little bit of an issue when I think we've all realised our greatest asset is our brains, or the right side of them. So, yeah. I
mean, like we at Talk Club, we talk about mental fitness. So we talk about the idea of, we don't look at, if you Google physical fitness, you see positive affirmations and you sort of see people doing yoga or running. If you look at mental health, you look at so physical health, mental health. You look at mental health and you see negative stuff. You see depression and you see anxiety and you see these words. So that's the reason why we look to mental fitness and we try to reposition, as a charity, we're trying to reposition that and trying to get people mentally fit, because if you're mentally fit, you're mentally strong. And strength in an industry where we're paid to use our brains is a good sign. So, but do you think now, I mean, Dave and I would say we're out of the industry, wouldn't you? So we're out the day-to-day of the industry, and I've probably been out the day-to-day of an industry for probably 5 years. You guys are in it. You guys are in it now, and you all checked in at 8, so something's working right. But what do you think is working better now than it was 10 years ago? Is there a problem now? Are we just wasting our time on this stage? Is it all sorted? I mean, who wants to pick that one up?
I've felt a huge difference coming back because I was out of the industry for 5 years. Number one, the flexible working, I think, is gentler on people and allows them to be much more considerate about how they balance home life and family life and prioritise themselves and their kids. Also, I think during COVID, companies provided some mental health care or some, headspace or whatever it was. So that's a couple of things I've noticed. Also, when I've come back into the industry, I've been very vocal about how I structure my week for my mental health, and that's still weird. Like when I leave on a Tuesday to go to therapy, I always tell someone, and that's weird. But I think by role modeling, looking after our mental health or mental fitness is a way that we can make it less weird. And then on the provision of mental health services, and this goes for when I was at Headspace as well, my observation is it's not enough just to provide. You have to chaperone people and normalize getting help. Like just free access to shit doesn't really mean anything unless they use it. So that would be my big kind of, I can see it's available now more than it was before, but what's the uptake of it really? And who's really role modeling it in the office? And who's being really proud of looking after their mental health? I don't think that has really changed.
I mean, I remember saying to someone, they're trying to put in a meeting, and I sort of said, I can't do that. It was when I was at Y&R, and creative director of Y&R, my business director went to me, I can't do that meeting, I've got therapy. And there was silence in the room. And I was like, what? And then as I come out, my business partner said to me, what's wrong? I said, what do you mean what's wrong? Because you've got therapy. I go, nothing's wrong, I've got therapy. And to me, it was really interesting because my mum's a therapist. I grew up around therapy. But it was really interesting to sort of see his reaction to that. Going like, you would never, when you see someone going out for a run, you go, God, what's wrong? They must be unfit. Do you know what I mean? We are so used to it when we come to physical health to look after ourselves. I mean, you're a practicing therapist as well. I mean, have you seen a difference in those 3 agencies that you mentioned?
Yeah, I think to your initial point, Ben, I think what the key here is normalising mental health and well-being, the same as we normalise fitness, health and well-being. And when my first job at Anomaly was to review our benefits both in London and in Berlin. And we have a company called Open Up, and they are mental health practitioners. They're not, they are psychologists, but that's not the way in. The way in is the mental health practitioners. They're also mindful practitioners. They also do masterclasses, so you have a whole range of things there. We do monitor the usage to make sure that it is being utilised. We also have another company called Evolution, and they are fitness practitioners who also do nutrition and if you're not sleeping very well and all of that sort of thing. So it's a holistic approach. And then I would just say on an individual level, I think, I encourage people to go have a walking meeting. If you can have a walking meeting rather than sitting at your laptop, do it with the person you're going to have a walking meeting with. Make sure that you have your time. And I think it's really important, as Caroline said, to normalise it. It's really easy for me to sit here and go, oh, I'm a people and talent person, and therefore that's why I became a psychotherapist. That's not, well, I am a people and talent person. The reason why I became a psychotherapist is because I was recognised in a time of my life I was holding on by my fingernails. I was still getting up in the morning, I was still functioning, but it wasn't good. And I found myself an amazing therapist who changed my life. And that set the seed for me. Could I possibly do this one day? And I did. And so for me, it's about mental health and normalizing it, not pathologizing it. Some of my clients in my private practice, I am their mental health coach. That's what I am. They don't have a problem. They just need to have someone to check in with to make sure that they are mentally well. That's it.
I mean, for me, it's sort of we are the creative industry. We are Formula One cars, right? And if you don't look after your brain, your engine is the engine of these cars is your brain. If you don't look after your brain, then we're just stuck in a garage. I mean, the amount of people that we've worked with, and we can all name them, who have had breakdowns, have been close to those moments of I can't handle this pressure anymore. I mean, Jim, what have you seen with the stuff that you're doing? I mean, it's up to you when you talk about your experience in the past, but that evolution about what you're trying to create inside your agency.
Yeah, I mean, therapy for me has been the lifesaver. The biggest change that I've seen as well in the last few years, which I think is COVID related, is that we're talking about it more and trying to model that behavior and show people that word is okay, and that it means the opposite of being ill. It means you're actually getting help. But I guess the biggest thing that we've done, I think, is more around trying to support the whole human within the environment. So, for example, we have check-ins every month, one-to-one, that are not about work. They include work, but they're also about your work, your personal life, and your health life. And in fact, Ben, we do scores out of 10. So that's the first thing we do, is we sit down and go, what's your work score? What's your personal score? What's your health score? And you can't have 7s. And it just means that there's a space for people to talk and just try to create, and different ways of doing that. So we have buddy chats. So you have a chat with someone in the agency who you probably don't work with. You're not allowed to talk about work. That just is a connection for you to have. Stuff like that, where you're trying to create an environment of psychological safety, I guess, and look at the whole human rather than just the work person, is the big shift that I've seen.
I mean, so these sound like great solutions. These sound like I mean, that it's working. I mean, is there stuff? What else do we want to see? What haven't we got yet? What else do you want to see, Dave?
I think for me, having been out of the industry for a bit and then back into it, I do see change. I mean, the fact that we're all speaking about this now, there's a panel about mental health in the advertising industry at a creative festival, I think is a really positive step forward. I have I guess a therapist who's also acts like a business coach, which I meet with regularly. Because I think, and I think things like that should be implemented in agencies. I think all agencies should have someone to go and talk to, because I'm a big believer that the creative mind shouldn't be constantly on. It needs a break. It obviously needs to be a sponge. You need to go and see a concert, a movie, and just relax. And I think having someone to talk to that's going through the same things you are can help you implement different tasks and strategies to basically get a better work-life balance. Because I think studies have proven that if you have a better balance, you're going to be more productive and you're also going to be more creative. And I think things like that in an agency to be able to call on would be great. I mean, my wife doesn't work in advertising; she works in another industry, and they have a meditation room, and I think that's pretty amazing. And I think it's again not immune to advertising or the creative industry. I think it's a societal thing that's changing, which is really great.
I mean, like if anyone's seen Billions, you mean like the backstory of Billions inside one of the storylines is that you get to a level in money that you get a head coach. Do you think there's something that the agencies should be investing in as with the mental health or the mental fitness of our people? I mean, for example, I mean, without putting you straight on there, do you pay for your therapy or does your agency?
I pay for my therapy.
So just something as simple as that. I mean, as a charity, all our management team, we all the charity pays for our therapy because I'm talking about suicide daily. So I'm sort of like, we have to make sure that we don't burn out, but you've taken it on yourself to sort of do that.
Yeah, my therapist and I started way before I started at Dentsu, though, so that's like old baggage I'm bringing with me. We provide mental health support for everyone at Dentsu. Can I just go back to another point, the life-work balance thing? Just because when I was younger, I would see life-work balance as work and then fuck you work, like work and then drinking, or work and then shopping, or work and then holiday with a vengeance. And actually that wasn't balance at all. That was just like burnout and anger. And so my lesson now as an old woman is that the balance, I think, is work should fulfill your creative desires or whatever your desires are at work. And then not work should nourish and nurture you as a whole human. And that's changed my life, rather than just going, fuck you at work and fuck you out of work. It's just so unhealthy and ridiculous. But like having gone through that spectrum of very high pressure and then actually a headspace very low pressure, I wasn't being fulfilled at work. And that's kind of a weird other balance that's a little bit off. So that would be my kind of observation, is it's not about time in work, time out of work. It's about the quality in work and the quality out of work that makes you a well, whole person.
Jim, do you want to build on that, or do you want to look at what more solutions we can be putting forward?
Well, I'm really interested in the idea, Nick. I really love your thoughts on this. It's like, because I guess I think it's really interesting to think about trying to create a culture, rather than, my worry is sometimes that we might outsource it and just go, oh, we've got a mental health person, you go and talk to them, and it's somehow, it's like, how do we make it embed it in the culture more within businesses? I wonder if...
I think it has to come from the leaders of the culture of the agency. I mean, everyone individually contributes to a culture, but the leaders, people look at the leaders of the agency or the company to walk the walk. And I think, you know, as the point's been made, yes, you can provide, but if you then provide a culture where everyone is on burnout, then that's not the right environment. It looks good on a list of benefits, but it actually, if people are just falling over, I always think about work-life blend. I don't like the phrase work-life balance because I always think if I don't get the right balance, I'm going to fall over. So I think, you know, for me, weekends are more of a personal life blend, and then during the week it's more work. But to Caroline's point, I think you have to look at how do you nourish yourself, and nourishing yourself during the day at work, making sure that you work for a company that's aligned to your purpose and your values, and then nourishing yourself out of work, which doesn't mean drinking yourself to comatose when you're not at work, but actually doing some good fitness stuff and just getting out in nature. For me, that's what calms my soul, is getting out nature. And I'm a huge believer in, like, just use the energy around you. We are all connected through energy, so just use that energy. We have it within us. Breathe, learn to breathe properly. That's a really good one. Meditation, that's another great one. Yeah, lots of access there.
So we've got 15 minutes left, and we're going to do. Caroline's going to lead us through some meditation at the end. So right at the end, we're going to do.
I'm going to press play on a video. I'm not going to lead any meditation.
Caroline's going to lead us through. So I want to throw some questions out to you guys. So I will pick on people if they don't. Oh, we've already got a volunteer. I will pick on people if we don't have any. But we're going to go over here first of all, because that was the first arm that I saw in the air.
Thank you. I love looking at the whole human, by the way, Jim, that's so lovely. I just wanted to say, from client demands to kind of personal growth and promotions, I think there's a whole myriad of other things that we're kind of trying to approach. And I think as an industry, we are really obsessed with productivity. And I just think that now also that we've moved into hybrid roles, we're now having to show up in person, we're also now having to show up online, we've got Slack, we've got so many tools at hand. And I think there's so many people that I talk to who have experienced burnout, including myself as well. And I'm wondering, how do we step away from this focus and find balance? I think throughout all these talks today, there's been a lot of conversation about window dressing and saying, actually, you know, it's good enough that we talk about it. And I don't know whether or not, as an industry at large, how we can actually change this obsession. And if you really believe that it is these small moments that can ladder up, or whether or not the industry really needs a big shift and a kind of repositioning, basically. Because I do think that as maybe senior roles, where you've got a privilege to talk about this, but junior roles, they're really entering into a crazy, crazy world. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So the question is, you got my mic. So the question is more along the lines of, do we think it's window dressing? Is that where
you're... window dressing, and whether or not these small moments are enough, or whether or not we need a big kind of structural change to kind of make the bigger impact, really.
Who wants to pick that one up? Miss Pay?
I always talk first, don't I? I love the sound of my own voice, that's why. There are so many things that we need to change in the industry. So I'm a big believer in small tweaks every day, rather than trying to boil the ocean, which has got so many problems I wouldn't know where to start. So my belief is small tweaks every day, and by that I mean meaningful, real conversations, bringing your whole self to work, role modeling, looking after your mental health, being thoughtful about who you put on what projects, calling people out when they're asking too much of the team, checking in on people when they're not taking holidays. So just being much more open about making all of these small moves in every conversation that you have every day. That's certainly my own personal approach that I'm bringing back into working in an agency again.
I mean, we have a thing at Talk Club. We don't send an email after 6 o'clock. If I send an email after 6 o'clock, I get fined. I get fined £1 by my team if I send an email after 6, and I'm the worst of the lot. And I sort of like, I put it on a timer so it goes out at half 8 in the morning. Yeah, and we've got the tech there now. But the thing is, you go and even though the thing of when you put it out and you go, I don't expect a reply from this, but you are still creating a culture where it's okay to send an email after 6 o'clock. And I do think we need to change that. I think it's back to working smart. Jim, do you want to pick on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I'm sort of with Caroline, and like, I think the main thing we're all talking about it. We have to model that behaviour. I think is the first thing. It does come, as Nicola said, it comes from leadership, so we have to model that. I think there is a whole new generation coming into the industry with a very different set of expectations as well, and we need to adapt to that to a certain extent as well, but I don't have a kind of perfect solution.
Next question. We'll go here and then we'll come over to Dave.
Thank you. Hi, folks. This is maybe a slightly left field question, but I will get there, which is, I'm interested in your thoughts on the intersectionality around mental health. We know, especially coming out of the pandemic, that women and people of color shouldered a large proportion of the care-related responsibilities throughout that time period and beyond. And that obviously took a toll on people's mental health. And I'm curious on your thoughts of the ways in which we as an industry might kind of take responsibility for or tackle some of those intersectionalities in such a way that we are helping out all of the communities that are a major part of our industry.
Nick?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is a celebration of people in the intersectionality. I'm just thinking about the agency that I currently work for and the previous agencies. You know, I've had a head of ED&I. We've had people who group together as interested groups. So we've got Queer Plus, for instance, at Anomaly. We've got agency. We've got other people who come together as a collective group because they are at that intersectionality. So I think, first of all, it's about providing an inclusive working environment. So as much as possible, their mental health isn't suffering a detriment because they're having to mask who they truly are or having to hide who they truly are. And as Caroline said, are able to come to work and show up as their whole selves. I think that's the first point. I think you're absolutely right. We know statistically that there is, people do suffer from mental health because of the experience that they have both outside the workplace and inside the workplace. So for me, it's about let's provide an equitable and inclusive working environment first and foremost, as well as the support network, and as a leadership team to, again, demonstrate those behaviours.
Over here in the pink shirt.
Hi there. My name is David. Thank you very much for coming and giving us your talk. I've got to start by saying I'm 10 out of 10. 5 years ago, I was 0 out of 10, rock bottom. I think Ben knows my story. And Talk Club really did help pull me out of a very dark place. So I'm creative, 20 years experience, love my job, love the industry. There's a heck of a lot of pressure. We've all got central nervous systems, live in a capitalist society, and I understand growth is very important, and competition, and driving the workforce. But it comes as a detrimental impact for that. Schools don't educate our children about health, mental health, and how to self-regulate. So when they go into the workforce and they come across stress within the workplace and they add stress from their personal life, they can experience something which I experienced, which was a very much crisis point. So I feel very passionate about education, and if schools aren't teaching people how to self-regulate and look after their own become their own mental health managers, essentially, if schools aren't fulfilling that, and agencies are, by very nature, putting pressure on people to push themselves each day to compete against each other, to create work that doesn't feel valued. Should agencies educate and train their workforce how to self-regulate and manage their own mental health? One more point. My parents were born-again Christians, and they dedicated 10% of their salary to their church. People don't really go to church anymore, and work is our religion now. So my argument is, if work is now our church, should agencies spend 10% of their profits on their workforce?
Oh, who's got some money? Okay, you two run agencies. Going to give us some money?
Okay, first of all, work isn't my church. I just want to put that out there. Church is my church and work is my job. I think investing in your workforce's mental health is really important, making it easier to look after yourself, ensuring that you have time and space, support. We have an army of mental first aid workers at Dentsu, over 100 people trained in looking after the rest of the team. That's not everyone, but it's a start. Again, brilliant if we could make a way to fund, if money was just an answer, but I go back to my earlier point. It's not just making it available, it's making it normal. And I think that's a behavior change and an attitude change rather than just, there's a lump of money.
Yeah, I mean, we're a small agency, we're 40 people, and we try and embed it into everyone. So these, I talked about the one-to-ones, but they're part of it. But to your first point, which was around education and the idea of being trained in mental health, I mean, that's not just an advertising thing. That's obviously for all children, I think, is a really fascinating point. And I wish I could change it. But I think that's fascinating. Whether agencies should train people when they come in around managing their mental health, it's a really interesting idea. I mean, Dave, you run, you've been in that world and you're now running a brewery, and could it work there as well, for example?
Yeah, it's interesting having now my own brand and stuff to look after. And there's a lot of talk a couple of years ago about, educating kids on money, because they never get, in school in Australia, there's never any financial, education properly as kids. And they're now starting to implement that, which is great. And I do think education on how to self-regulate yourself and mental health in schools is a very good idea. Whether we should be putting it into agencies and other workplaces, I don't know, but I'm definitely for schools doing more of that. I think that's highly important, because a lot of problems I've encountered personally and friends that have encountered, of course, and you guys might be able to speak to this more, happens during childhood. So if you've got that education to help go against that, then I think it's amazing.
Well, I've just finished a film. It's being premiered next week. It's called Our Kids, Our Lives, and I've looked at that. I've looked at the mental health of kids, and I've been making this film for 3 years. It didn't turn out how I expected it to turn out. These films never do. But some of the shocking statistics that were coming out is that 7% of 17-year-olds have attempted suicide, and 50% of mental health issues happen before the age of 14. And schools are doing stuff, but actually it's back to culture. It's back to parents. It's back to sort of like creating cultures where we can actually get people opening up and talking. And I don't know how my film's going to be received, but it's hard. It was a hard film to make, and it's a hard film because it asks a lot of questions of us as parents, as responsible adults, because there's so much different. I think I'm closer to my parents' generation than I am to my kids' generation for what goes on in the world. I don't know how much time have I got.
We're actually done, ladies and gents. I'm really sorry, Ben. I know there's lots of questions, but you can email them through to us.
Okay. Can we have the
You do
meditation?
one more.
Can we so
Meditation. We can do the meditation.
Let's do one more.
Lynn, are we ready to do meditation?
Quick one down the front.
If it's comfortable for you, let's begin by taking a gentle deep breath
I need to caveat
in through the
it.
nose and out.
It's like the Academy Awards when you get played off with the music.
Do a quick question.
So I guess, like, I just kind of want to know from your point of view how you put your hand up and say, oh, I'm struggling with my mental health, without it actually hindering your career or your promotion prospects. Like, you don't really want to identify yourself as someone who is struggling if there's people in your team that are going for the same roles as you that aren't. So it would just be interesting to see what you guys actually thought as a practical tip or a way to go around that without positioning yourself as, you know, somebody who's not capable, I suppose.
I would just say that you need to be thoughtful around the culture of the company that you're in, because the right company will give you the right support and will not judge you for that. It's like if you hurt your knee and you need to go and see a physio, or you are out for 6 weeks because it's looping back to, we need to normalize mental health and well-being the same as our fitness and our physical well-being, because they're all connected. So that's what I would say.
And that's what How Are You Out of 10 can do. It's sort of like if you're looking at it, that's what we're trying to work on. If you're looking at it and you go, I'm a 5 today, but I was a 6 yesterday, and you can regulate yourself and you can actually check in instead of actually building up. Okay, let's do this. Let's do the...
Oh, we're just going to do a 3-minute meditation. It's from Headspace. Kasonga is the meditation teacher. I know it's weird to meditate with other people, but I promise you it's more powerful. If you're comfortable closing your eyes, then you'll feel the benefit more. It's only 3 minutes, and it's to refocus you, and Kasonga will guide you through, and you will feel differently after. So really, I think what we're supposed to do is put our feet flat on the ground, put your hands in your lap, try and relax. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes. It's not the law, and enjoy. Over to you, Kasonga in the sky.
Let's begin by taking a gentle deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And with that exhalation, adopting a comfortable posture of awareness, returning the breath to its natural rhythm, and allowing your attention to gently drop into this present moment. And without turning or looking around, just lightly bringing into your awareness all that's in your surrounding space. And with your next out-breath, allowing your focus to fall onto one specific object that's in your field of vision. And it's not an intense stare, so just maintaining it as a very soft focus. And this is a gentle practice, so if at any point the eyes become fatigued, allowing yourself to gently close them for a moment or two, and then reopening them, nice and easy. Noticing as any thoughts come and go, and just returning the attention back to your object. And now letting the focus zoom back out again, being aware of your surroundings, perhaps blinking a few times, allowing this cultivated focus to follow you into your next activity.